morning, everyone. Really glad to be here. My name is Yanos Ashodis. I'm the managing partner of Plix Hill, a strategic advisory firm with offices in Cyprus and in Abu Dhabi. We're providing support to financial services firms. I'm not going to say with an emphasis, but definitely with a focus over the past few years to crypto and digital asset related companies. So basically the topic that we're going to be discussing with Marco today is something which is very close to me personally, because I'm also a board member of Revolut Digital Technologies, which is the crypto arm of Revolut in the European Union. I was part of the team that actually initiated the discussions to get the license in the European Union and create a central hub in Cyprus, where it's going to be providing the services for all of the European Union jurisdictions. So I'm really, really happy that I have the opportunity to be here in Kazakhstan, and especially with Marco, who is Vice President of Global Expansion and Strategic Partnerships at Tether. Tether definitely being one of the unicorns in the industry, probably one of the most important names in the digital asset space. And we're going to be discussing, as the name of the panel implies, stablecoins, a bridge to sustainable finance, how effectively stablecoins can become, if you allow me, the flag towards mass adoption and acceptance of stablecoins in the financial services ecosystem, but in society in general. So today the panel is going to be comprised of myself and Marco. We also have Paolo Arduino, who is the CEO of Tether. Unfortunately, Paolo couldn't be with us today, but we have, from what I understand, a message from him. So before beginning our discussion with Marco, maybe we can focus our attention on what Paolo has to say, and spend the next few minutes listening to him.
Hello everyone, my name is Paolo Arduino. I'm the CEO at Tether and CTO at Bitfinex. Thank you very much for being here today, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy an upcoming panel, Stablecoins, a bridge to sustainable finance. Unfortunately, I cannot be there with you today, but our VP of Expansion and the partnerships, Marco Dal Lago, will guide you through all the different initiatives that both Tether and Bitfinex are implementing across Central Asia and the rest of the world. And for sure, it's very important for me to say that Kazakhstan is in our hearts and is one of the main locations that we are planning to increase our business in. In 2021, Bitfinex Securities became the first digital asset company to be regulated and licensed in the IFC. While Bitfinex and our group of companies historically didn't have many offices and headquarters around the world, we are a very, very decentralized company. Our personnel lives across 65 different countries. So it's very diverse, it's very well trained to cover all the different time zones. So for a digital asset company that works 24/7, 360 days per year, that is very important. But yet we decided nevertheless to open our first office in Astana. We think that the IFC regulatory regime will offer to digital asset companies like Bitfinex Securities the ability to build the future of finance with the possibility of offering tokenization services for and capital raise services and secondary markets for digital bonds, digital stocks, digital equities, and shares of funds. The decision of opening Bitfinex Securities offices in Astana has placed our company at the heart of the Astana International Financial Center, an important hub, a key hub in Central Asia that connects also to the rest of the world. Our office and our presence in Astana helped us to, first of all, build a relationship with the AFSA and also with other IFC participants, and allowed us to find very, very interesting opportunities in potential high-quality issuers that are present in and have headquarters in Central Asia. And this is a very important signal that Kazakhstan is becoming the center of a new world of digital finance, and we are very, very excited to be part of it. Since then, we have been committing many more resources to keep growing our presence in the region, and we are helping Astana to develop an important financial center. This is our third consecutive year at the Astana Finance Days. Last year, at this very same event, Bitfinex Securities entered in a memorandum of understanding with the Astana International Exchange to foster collaboration in the realm of tokenized securities and financial technology. We are now exploring the possibility to prefer dual listings of conventional and tokenized securities, and we are establishing a post-trade links between our settlement systems in order to facilitate and improve efficiency of these dual listings across the different platforms. We see this collaboration as a very key step to improve capital markets efficiency for both investors and issuers in order to provide the global liquidity and real-time settlement 24/7, 365 days per year. At the end of the last year, we made history by issuing the first ever tokenized bond for Microcapital, a microfinancing firm that is very active in Europe and Central Asia. This was the first in a kind of a tokenized issuance and was listed on Bitfinex Securities secondary market bought against the US dollar and USDT, the Tether primary stablecoin. Since then, we were able to continue our work with the Microcapital and the regulator to allow this issuance to become a continuous issuance, so that the company could continue to raise capital from new investors or existing investors, creating a more seamless experience. This first issuance was a big success, and eventually has been added to Bitfinex Securities secondary market to be traded both against the US dollar and against USDT, the main stablecoins created by Tether. Since then, this first issuance has been improved and evolved into an ongoing issuance program with microcapital bonds of various duration and coupons being offered on a monthly basis. Not only we have brought new investors to tokenized securities, but also we managed to launch yet another product, unique in its kind, that is the Blockstream mining node, that allowed investors to gain exposure to Bitcoin mining. Our debut offering on Bitfinex Securities, which has gone through its 3-year life cycle, mining more than 1.2 thousand Bitcoin, was the Blockstream mining node, a tokenized security designed to offer investors exposure to Bitcoin mining. This innovative financial product provides investors with a share of Bitcoin generated by Blockstream's enterprise-grade mining facilities. Since the launch of the Bitcoin ETF, we have seen a sharp uptick in interest in tokenized securities, and slowly the consensus view of legacy finance seems to be moving towards our vision of how this technology can be applied to capital markets. I'm pleased to say that we expect the rest of the second half to be our busiest period ever. Our near-term pipeline in Astana includes more issuances from Microcapital, new listings that will be significantly larger than anything we've done to date, in a collaboration with our friends at Skybridge Digital that will mark the launch of some of the world's first tokenized funds. If it had not been for the forward-looking policies of the IFC and the regulatory framework provided by AFSA, we would have not been able to achieve these breakthroughs. In all these cases, the investments were issued in Tether tokens, and as it remains the easiest and most fungible asset for investors to access. Tether's story began in 2014 as a simple idea and a simple product. The idea was to combine the most powerful technology that we had since the invention of Bitcoin, called blockchain, and the most used fiat currency in the world, called the US dollar. Over the last years, Tether evolved from being a powerful tool for cryptocurrency trading settlement to be almost a lifeline and a tool for financial freedom, enabling individuals and businesses to move digital dollars on blockchain globally without borders and almost at no cost. This removes the friction and the inefficiency that have plagued the traditional financial system, particularly in cross-border payments and remittances. This topic of remittances is one of the ones that it's mostly dear to us, because it really affects billions of people living in high inflation countries that has to send money back to their families, and they are very, very highly charged by the existing traditional players. Stablecoins like USDT are not just the digital assets, they are the bridge to a more inclusive and sustainable financial system. They offer a bear-like instrument that carries low risk while providing immense flexibility. Whether you are a small business accepting payments from across the globe or an individual sending money to family overseas, stablecoins simplify the process, making it faster, cheaper, and more secure. And unlike the traditional banking system, stablecoins can be transferred 365 days per year, 24/7. But we don't want to stop here. At Tether, we welcome traditional banks and businesses to explore how stablecoin products can integrate into their operations. By adopting stablecoins, they can unlock new efficiencies, reduce transaction costs, and expand their reach in new markets. We were honored last year to have representatives from APSA join our flagship annual conference in Lugano, Switzerland, and are excited also to see representation from El Salvador, where we are also licensed, joining Astana Finance Days for the first time. We expect a number of exciting new issuances from both jurisdictions in the coming months, and are happy to see increased interaction between two of the global leaders in digital asset and security token regulation. I am sure that it will be an enlightening talk, and I hope that you will enjoy his presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I guess thanks go to Paolo for his message. Actually, I'm sure that we could have a discussion for 40 minutes just based on what Paolo said, because there were some very, very interesting points there, especially about the financial freedom and the efficiencies that basically stablecoins bring to the financial markets, and also about the inclusion and the sustainability of stablecoins. Now, we're going to start talking about, obviously, about Tether and USDT. Before that, I briefly just mentioned your name and your title. So, Marco Dal Lago, would you like to say a little bit about yourself and about basically your experience and your journey into Tether?
Definitely. Okay. I have to stay a bit far away. I learned. So pleasure to meet you all. Actually, it's my second time in Astana, and I was saying that I was impressed by the talks that I had with several, let's say, people here. Ministry of Digitalization, actually, I heard he had an experience in, let's say, in our industry, and so it's easy for me I don't have to say anything, no? They understand pretty everything themselves, so it's great, really. So I met really a lot of intelligent people. So in my experience, basically, when I was hired in the beginning, I was hired to work on the Plan B initiative mostly. In Switzerland, especially, the banking sector was slowing down quite a bit. There were a lot of people being fired, and we saw, like, I was living in a small town called Lugano. We started seeing like this building being empty, and blockchain companies basically renting this building afterwards, or buying this building. So it was a interesting thing, and so that's why we created an initiative which was called Plan B, Plan Bitcoin, because the Plan A kind of failed, and so we started working on many things like digital payments, education, events, awareness for merchants, and so on, mining. So it was a partnership between it is still a partnership between Tether and the city of Lugano, with the local government, let's say. And then we started expanding a little bit this initiative everywhere. I was already head of expansion, so I was already trying to set up these, but there was no team in Tether. I think the first marketing guy was hired in 2021, something like that. And so Tether as a product, as a solution, was going pretty organically, you know. When you invent something with good market fit, it goes well. And then I started building up the expansion team, really geographically oriented. So I have at least one person in each core market. But as you know, Tether, we are just few people, and now we are hiring more and more, but still in a conservative manner, because we believe that one right person can do like 10 if managed well and find the right one. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so, well, expansion has definitely been probably the key word for Tether. I mean, if you look at the dominance of the USDT over any other stable coin, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, there's no even a second stable coin. I mean, the dominance has been absolute, I guess. So how do you perceive the strategy? Can you explain a little bit about the strategy of Tether in terms of, first of all, ensuring this dominance, and also what is the strategic approach for global expansion? And as a tail to the question, how do you ensure also the adoption of stable coins in emerging markets like Kazakhstan, other markets in Central Asia, in the UAE, for example, which we're going to be talking about that a little bit later on. So what is the plan? What is the map that you guys are following towards that?
So first of all, many times I take credits for something I didn't do, because we go in many countries where USDT is already there, and I don't want to be arrogant to say that it was my job, right? So it was organically a very good product and went a little bit everywhere. Then when it comes to expansion, so the expansion team especially work on real world use cases. So 90% of my discussion is with non-crypto, non-digital currency kind of companies. And because it's where you want to onboard the next billion users that can become part of this industry and basically exploit the advantages of stablecoins. So first of all, it depends on the country, because if you go to a country where there is lack of regulation or regulation is very restrictive, we cannot do much sometimes. Like, for example, you cannot enable payments. And then you need to work with regulators. Like it happened, I believe, here in Kazakhstan with AFSA as well. Our regulatory team worked a lot, I think, together with AFSA to try to comment and give some considerations on the regulations. I think in the last year we worked with more than 30 regulators, for example. Then it depends on the country, but then you can work on payments, cross-border payments, trade finance. Especially the expansion and strategic partnership team is really not about kind of trading or this is more an exchange kind of job, but it's more about facilitating transactions. And when you speak about USDT especially, it's about 24/7, like settlement time. It's about speed of transactions. I was saying also before, many times when I moved to Georgia, now where I live, if I send a transfer between Switzerland and Georgia, it's stuck sometimes, and you don't know why. No, there is an intermediary bank maybe that is asking you a lot of questions for money that have been already KYC'd, AML'd, and so on. And so we live in 2024, but still I cannot send a transfer sometimes on Saturday and Sunday. And you mentioned Revolut. Revolut did a great job, no? We think that stablecoins are not really useful in Western countries somehow. Like in US, they have very good payment rails for US dollar. In Europe, they don't understand the dollar. I'm Italian, I'm European, so I can tell it. No, I saw my first dollar bill when I was 20 or something. There are no dollars. There is kind of no need. So we actually focus only on the emerging markets, LATAM, Africa, Asia, everything that we do is there. I don't have even one person in Europe, other than Switzerland, but Switzerland is a different case because the regulation is really advanced, I would say. So it's a good place where you can test technologies to then bring it and deploy somewhere else. Because in Switzerland, a merchant can receive Bitcoin or USDT and hold Bitcoin and USDT, for example. You know, it's like called kind of de facto legal tender, where almost nowhere you can do it. El Salvador, of course, really advanced. But, you know, so there are like, most of the people are there. There are challenges in emerging markets, of course, because maybe you miss some basic foundation of technology somewhere. But it's where people are in need of these tools. Unbanked people are in need of these tools, and unbanked people are unbanked not because they are bad people most of the times. No, we are like, I don't know if it's the right data, but like 600 million people in Africa don't have electricity. Think about having like a bank account, right? So they don't have easy access of electricity, at least. So these people are not profitable for normal banks in general. So they need to find other tools. And I mean, opening up your own bank with your private key, it's easy, right? You need some education to prevent financial scams, financial frauds, and we are really serious about that, working on that level. But it's so powerful the way that you can manage your money if you want. Still, Tether is still a centralized company, right? It's still a centralized party, so you have to trust Tether. The only decentralized tool is Bitcoin, in our opinion. Or even Tether is a bridge to Bitcoin. So if you want completely to not trust anyone, then use Bitcoin. Don't even use Tether. Tether is like made of people. There is management. You have to trust the management of Tether, which proved some things in the past. That's why it's so liquid. Maybe.
Yeah, but basically you guys are giving the stability that that Bitcoin cannot offer. But basically on the tail of that answer, where do you attribute this absolute dominance of Tether over any other stablecoin that came out? Was it luck? Was it chance? I mean, what do you think that contributed to this absolute dominance of Tether over any other stablecoin?
Yeah, I think it's still okay. It's still on. I think the dominance of Tether. First of all, there was a first mover advantage, I would say. But it's really the kind of also bold decisions that Tether founders made when I was not even there. So I cannot take like credits of that. So when I was saying they focus on emerging markets, that's the key thing. So let's focus where it's really in need. Stablecoin. Then you can take different directions, and that can make you a little bit like problematic. Let's say some issues with regulators and so on. For example, not adding a little fee on when you do issuance and redemption, or sharing the yield with customers. These are moves that. It's easy if you stop putting fees, maybe you do more issuances, for example, or if you stop, or if you start like giving some yields, part of the yields, of course you attract more customers, no? So it's better to have a conservative, let's say, growth, at least in the beginning, but you just focus on your business model, like a really core business model, and you try to not change direction for whatever wind is coming. Now we are seeing, for example, a lot of yield-bearing stablecoins, which provide a little bit of yield and share a bit of yield to the customers. In my opinion, that's my personal opinion, this is dangerous, first of all, because it can make you configure as a security. Maybe they did legal analysis on their side, so it's fine. But also, if you look at that, in countries where people just need to save money and to make transactions, they are not really looking for a 4% interest rate when your currency is devaluating maybe 50%, So it's really about focusing on the core business model and doing it properly. That was, let's say, what Tether did. And then about Tether innovation, it's like we launched Tether Gold It's still not massive maybe, but it's really interesting solution. It's a little bit coming back to the gold standard. So you tokenize gold. It's not paper gold. Gold is in like stocked in Switzerland. It's on your name, so you can redeem gold or deliver it to an address in Switzerland, and then you can bring it away. And now you have access to the gold in an easy manner. We don't make money on it, to be honest, because it's like a small issuance and redemption fee, really small, and there is no way that you make money out of gold if you don't lend it. And if you lend it, then it's not anymore like safe, right? So, and then, you know, we launched AUSDT, alloyed by Tether, and that's like a US dollar, but backed by gold. So it's a little bit like coming back to the gold standard. And still, we are strong believer in Bitcoin, but when there are geopolitical, like strange situations or macroeconomic situations, gold is what is understood by most of the people, right? So it's a safe net. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So, I mean, and of course, based on what you just said, I mean, Tether is recognized globally for its innovation, but you see that regulation is constantly evolving. And again, there's so many things I would like to ask you, right? So I feel that even that hour that we have, or the 40 minutes, it's too restrictive. So apologies to the audience and yourself if I'm just jumping from here and there, because I have this unique opportunity. I want to take advantage of it. So you have these diverse regulatory environments, and I'm sure you have a lot of challenges, I mean, to navigate. But the things that you said, I mean, identify your opinions with what MiCA is bringing in the European Union. And of course, MiCA, for those that are not aware, is a regulatory framework in the European Union about the crypto assets. It's called Markets in Crypto Assets, MiCA, right? So basically, I would say it's the first complete regulatory framework about crypto assets. Some of the things that are basically discussed in MiCA are exactly what you said. For stablecoins, you're not allowed to give any kind of incentive, any kind of return, right? You talked about having like the gold standard. So these are very, very important anchor points of MiCA. However, you have this innovation, but you were not the first stablecoin to be regulated in the European Union under MiCA. So does this have to do with the strategy that you guys are following? Are you following, like, in regards to navigating regulation? Are you following a different path? How do you analyze? How can you explain Tether strategy in regards to that?
Okay, so first of all, for sure, like if there was here, the VP of regulation could give a much better answer than myself, because I do a little bit another job. But I know that they were in touch and in active discussions with EU policymakers, different ones, also central bank, ESMA, MiCA people, and so on, since at least 3 years, actively participating in the discussions. And as I was saying before, we have a very proactive approach when it comes to regulation. So we have like the team dedicated to that is going to several countries, like they did 30 countries, different regulators, policymakers in many different jurisdictions in the last 12 months. Though, as I was saying before, we take a little bit bold decisions, and probably that's what allowed Tether to stay there in the market for a long time. When it comes to MiCA, and when it comes to regulation, you have to balance innovation and consumer protection together. And when it comes to MiCA, the view is that we have was that is a bit unfavorable to us for the business model we have, because 60% basically of the deposits of the reserves you need to take in cash deposits. Cash sit on banks' balance sheets. Okay, so that means that, think about when one of our competitor last year, like we had like Silicon Valley Bank that crashed, and there were 3 billions there. Then the stablecoin depegs, right? And so as a stablecoin issuer, you just need to be sure that you can do issuance and redemptions properly. So you take care about the money of your customers. And if 60% is in cash, held in several banks, you are exposed to a systemic risk of the banking system as well. Plus, money in Europe, in most of the banks, mostly have a certain threshold for which they are insured, which is 100,000 euros. So after that, it's uninsured. And so that's an issue that we see with MiCA. Still, we are working a lot together with the regulators to define a proper strategy for that. So then it's also, if you have 60% of cash deposits, also the commercial and the business model of a stablecoin where you have yield from treasury bills, for example, as we have now. Okay, it's already like a little issue on the business model side, but mostly on the consumer protection side. So we strongly advised also and gave some suggestions, but we will be strongly advising again. But as I mentioned, like it's a bit risky for us, especially as I was saying, we are focusing on other markets mostly, right? Emerging markets. So that's let's say not a big issue so far, although we are trying to work on that through the regulatory team.
Talking about focusing in emerging markets. So obviously Kazakhstan, I mean, is definitely one of the major economies in Central Asia. So can you tell us about Tether's initiatives in Kazakhstan or Central Asia? And obviously, how do you see Tether supporting financial inclusion, digital transformation in this part of the world? And of course, you're based in Georgia, so this goes in the general region as well.
So mostly, as I'm saying sometimes, like Tether is a bit like water, no? Right now. So you have like water everywhere, and then in each different country they decide how to package it, how to bottle it, if sparkling, it's still, and so on. So in reality, our job is to support companies and institutions that are already doing stuff in those countries. So when it comes to Georgia, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, or Azerbaijan, or the region, in the end we spot the interesting companies and institutions that want to work together with us, and we just try to support them and power them. So even here we have one of our portfolio company today, like citypay.io, that is establishing payments in the region. So our job is like to strategize with them, to provide like some resources in order to create like retail adoption of our solutions, basically. So, and then we work a lot with governments, central banks, ministries in order to give some advice. There is let's say sometimes there is a misalignment of needs between the countries, so it's a different approach every time. And for a stablecoin issuer, it's also not easy when, let's say, the regulation is a bit different in the different countries, because you don't know how to conform to that specifically. But basically, it's really, I think in this region, it's mostly, I think there is a big potential on cross-border payments and trade finance. It's huge, no? This trade finance system and cross-border payments in this region. In Europe, it's quite easy to send transfers all around Europe, but when you go to cross-border, if you want to send a transfer from Argentina to Kazakhstan, I think there would be some issues that in the beginning were solved by companies like Revolut, also maybe more for retail payments and so on, then were solved by other companies in the fiat industry. But I think what we see is that many banks are actually integrating stablecoins or other digital currencies. So there is a need for that. And we are seeing banks becoming the digital assets providers for the bank, giving custody, AML, compliance, and so on. So we are working with all these policymaker, regulators, companies, and so on.
And of course, I mean, as you mentioned, you'd have talks with the various governments in the region. and obviously, it's very important to have local partnerships in Tether strategy as well. Can you share some insights into effectively how you're engaging with policymakers to integrate stablecoins in the financial system? Is there a structured process in the way that you're approaching jurisdictions?
Yes, so we have the regulatory team and compliance team dedicated to that. So it depends on the country, but for example, El Salvador or even Georgia or Switzerland or whatever. So as I was mentioning before, our regulatory team was in touch with more than 30 regulators in the last 12 months. So mostly we have requests like to participate in discussions, as we did also with MiCA for 3 years. We give our considerations to all the different policymakers. On the expansion side of the job, we mostly work on the, let's say, business level. So maybe there are countries that want to issue their own CBDC or their own stablecoin. So we we give some technological and business advice on how to do so. So we are in touch with central banks and regulators to do so. Sometimes like a local stablecoins, more than CBDC for what I can say, provide a good on-off ramp like method, because nowadays it's still like tricky to sometimes off ramp money into a bank account. But if you design it properly with the right compliance, with the right AML, I think it can be done and can provide a good advantage. There are some countries where the regulation basically created also some systemic risks, like each exchange is creating their own stablecoin, and then you don't have any more interoperability, and you have a big systemic risk because you don't know whether they have the reserves in the background and so on. So our job is to try to help support whenever is needed, basically.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right there. And basically, in regards to MiCA, I think the paradox with MiCA is exactly that. You see, I mean, if you read through what MiCA is trying to do, it's trying to do what in the European Union you will have regulations in regards to payments. You have the Payment Services Directive, PSD2, PSD3, that has been coming out. That's basically talking about payments, and the European Union institutions have been trying effectively to marry the digital asset space with the payment space. And I think there's some conflict there, because you see that even though they're trying to promote payment facilitation through electronic money institutions instead of through the banking sector, to kind of move the risk or kind of isolate the risk that is coming from traditional bank institutions and move payments and make them more efficient into the PSD2 directives with payment institutions, electronic money institutions. We see that with MiCA, they're trying to do something similar, but at the same time, like you said, they're requesting the 60% of the reserves are sitting with traditional banks. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it has played out. So without being privy to the strategy of Tether, I can truly understand. Maybe perhaps you're choosing to go with emerging markets because you have more of a blank slate. You have a wide space in front of you to explore things. And I think that perhaps this is exactly what you saw in the opportunity to go ahead and cooperate with the Central Bank of the UAE. So basically, we just recently heard the exciting news that Tether's plans are to launch a stable coin, which is going to be pegged to the dirham in the United Arab Emirates. So can you give us more insights about this project? So about the inception, about how this came about, and also how do you see this specific stable coin impacting international trade and the remittances in the Middle East? Because obviously the dirham is one of the most accepted coin in the region.
I think it's interesting with dirham, because dirham is still pegged to the US dollar, and somehow by 3-4 times, right? The exchange rate should be 3-4 times, although it's not dependent to the US dollar. And the dirham is used hugely by population also for remittances and the cross-border payments when you see like India, Pakistan, and so on. So I think it's really an interesting use case also for those countries that are not willing to adopt US dollar in general. No, there are like we know that there are a lot of different geopolitical ecosystems. So I think the dirham stablecoin will give a big chance for many countries that maybe not the Western countries that are not already dollarized to find a tool to be used in these different markets. Especially as I was saying, like you have they have a big Philippine community in UAE. You have Indian community, Pakistani community, so on. And so I think it would be really interesting. We are working together with in a joint venture with another company called Phoenix, and still the project is seeking for license, although is on the work. But I think it will give let's say Tether tried to also launch other stablecoins. I think, in my opinion, Tether Gold is the most prominent one, also for the future, together with Alloy by Tether. But some other stablecoins, it's a bit of trial error as well. Like they became quite big, some a bit less. I have strong belief in the dirham stablecoin, to be honest, because of these remittances, cross-border payments kind of possibility that it will give. Yeah.
So thank you for that. So can we expect that to be the beginning of a more kind of localized version of Tether stablecoin? Is that just going to be the the initiation of something which is going to spread out?
So I think that we don't have to launch everything ourselves. Like we don't have to do every market, every stablecoin or whatever. But I'm in touch with many governments, many institutions and companies that are launching their own stablecoin. So I think Tether needs to just provide technology and advice to these companies. So our smart contracts are battle tested like for many years. And our processes, risk management processes and so on, was battle tested for a long time. So I think we play a role more of infrastructure provider rather than go in any country and pretend to know more than those countries, because we don't. That's why and especially payment systems are very localized. So you cannot be arrogant and go to a country and say that we know how to manage the finances. So I think we need just to empower with our technology, maybe white labeled and so on, like these different jurisdictions.
Thank you. And continuing with that, do you believe that basically this kind of localization of stable coins, do you think it's going to contribute, or it's going to take away from the dominance of the USDT denominated stable coin that basically was what put Tether on the map?
Oh, I think it won't if it's like a cannibalization kind of question. I don't think it will happen. Although, of course, like it depends on geopolitics a lot. I think we don't look too much into short-term reward, but more of what's happening in the world. And unfortunately, we don't have a very positive image of what's happening in the world in terms of geopolitics. And actually, I think if Tether is big, is because we pointed always at the worst case scenario. So you just define the worst case scenario, you put the finger on, and we go that direction. And it always revealed to be true, the worst case scenario usually. So that's why I think, yes, there might be like some, if there would be a huge war, for example, or some huge geopolitical interconnections and so on, I think maybe, US dollar, as we know, many countries are China is selling treasury bills from the US, Tether is buying, but I think that the world won't trust anymore in that currency, but maybe we'll trust more gold. So that's why also we go a little bit in that direction. And what is the safest place to put gold is probably Switzerland. And so, of course, I don't know what will happen in the near future, but as we point always to the worst case scenario, it's fine if our current model, we need to be reactive, right? And so it's fine if our current business model won't work anymore. We have already plans to work on different products and different solutions. So we really think about like 10 years ahead from now. Stablecoins, I think they will provide a more interoperability and interaction between other stablecoins. So I think it's just a boost, because right now, if you go to whatever country, you go to Ghana, you have the cities, you have to work with all the banks to on-off ramp with the cities, and then maybe companies don't want to hold cities, the currency in Ghana, for example. So there are companies like, let's mention one, remittance companies like Afriex. They are using stablecoins in the background. If you go on the website, there is no stablecoin mentioned, but they are using stablecoins, and then when the customer needs some cities, they just drop the amount of cities there, right? So you see, if you have a digital cities, for example, you just give a better way to off-ramp, because you cut more intermediaries. Intermediaries usually mean transaction fees. Transaction fees means that the one that loses is the user at the end of the game, right? Because you have a 1%, 2%, 3%, and then a remittance or a transaction is 10%. So, yeah.
Now, you mentioned that you have a 10-year plan as Tether. So Tether has made significant investments outside the crypto, particularly in artificial intelligence, other advanced technologies. How do you see these initiatives complementing Tether's core business? And if you could tell us more about basically the initiatives and the projects, if you can, of course, that are on the map for Tether.
Yeah, of course. I think like Tether doesn't identify anymore even like a cryptocurrency company, as it's told maybe by journalists and so on. But in the last year, we did a strong strategizing and rebranding as well. So now if you go on the tether.io website, there is tether.io, which is the finance part, but there's tether.io. And in tether.io, you will find out that there are like different pillars. There is the finance one, there is the data AI pillar, there is the power, let's say energy pillar, there is the educational pillar, and the evolution, where we have like the healthcare kind of part. So our CEO is really futuristic, he's living in an Asimov kind of books somehow. And so we have investments in many different companies and sectors. Like one notable investment was in Northern Data, German listed company working a lot on AI. They bought 5% of the total capacity of NVIDIA GPUs, so it's quite the biggest in Europe. You have BlackRock, Neuratech, which is not BlackRock, but Neuratech, which is similar to Neuralink, for example, so an investment in that. So if you look at the strategy of Tether, it's actually really not just that, but is somehow, you will see that everything that we do is towards a North Star of, let's say, achieving individual sovereignty, which is usually connected to two main features: financial freedom and freedom of speech. So financial freedom, okay, we have some finance part related. Freedom of speech is, for example, I don't know if you saw like the project called Kit.io. Kit is a peer-to-peer platform which doesn't need servers to send communications. We see when some servers go down, like you cannot anymore talk on WhatsApp for a few hours. It happened in the past and so on. And when there is a war or a bad situation, the first two things that are touched are money and communication, right? So we try to develop unstoppable technologies. That's what's drive us. And we will continue to do that in the future in these different pillars.
I could branch out from here. We can talk about Telegram. We can talk about what's happening with X in Brazil. I mean, there's so many different points about what you just said. I mean, and this is amazing because basically it just shows that you're ahead of the game, because basically you're trying to address issues which right now are so hot. And again, I mean, based on what you just said, I mean, one question which was not, obviously was not premeditated. So basically, you see that you have jurisdictions that are basically want to mess with certain rights. So basically, aren't you afraid that basically, if you make a choice in regards to a stable coin, based on what's happening in Brazil right now, right, and the conflict that they have with X. Aren't you afraid that basically you're going to be getting into bed with a specific jurisdiction, and then you're going to have these kind of issues because of someone in that specific jurisdiction is going to basically have a different opinion from yours? I mean, how do you address this kind of political risk in your strategy?
So indeed, like my role is more like business driven, let's say, or developing partnerships. So you can make mistakes because you have some objectives, but we have a very strong legal team that doesn't allow me to do anything, basically. And so there is the legal team, there is the compliance team, there is the regulatory team. So before entering a new jurisdiction, there are a lot of talks with these people internally before I start doing anything. Myself, I don't want to do anything until I speak with the regulators or someone. And then after that, we understand what can be done, if we can do something. If we cannot do something, I mean, it's not a problem. Like, it's fine. But so the first thing we do is literally when I check a country, we work with the regulatory team, we speak the regulation of the country, with the regulatory team of the country. I talk with compliance, I talk with legal. So it's a bit tough, it's a bit a headache for me because I'm not a lawyer for sure. But that's what we need to do to not commit like false steps. Of course, when you are a technological company, it's easy to let's say make FUD against Tether. It was done in the past a lot, so we are really used to it, and I'm used to it every day. But when you invent new technologies like this, there is no company that has not been under like FUD or problems and so on, because it's not understood sometimes because the regulations are different, so it's difficult even to, regulation, and actually I think it's part of your job as well. No, there is a new innovation in technology, and then you have like a regulation, try to regulate it which is good in general because it gives clarity to the industry. It gives clarity to us as well, because when you don't know exactly what to do, you don't know whether to establish a company in a certain place or not, because you are scared of committing some risk. So we are really actively participate in this, and we want to participate in this because it gives clarity to us and clarity to our users, which is the best that can be done. Although, like too much regulation, like it's happening in many countries, then you will see that the businesses are just flying away, basically, right? So things are going to happen somewhere else, and you lose time, basically. Yeah.
Absolutely, but I totally agree with you. Basically, regulation is a facilitator for business. It's not a blocker for business. We've seen this in the European Union with MiFID, for example. Financial services was democratized exactly because of the regulation that MiFID brought about, because it brought a level playing field. We saw that in the United States, especially in the digital asset space. The fact that there was no regulation brought about so much. And Vishal, I don't know if Vishal is in this room, basically one of the key persons of Binance could attest basically to the fact that there was no regulation at all in the United States. So basically they were getting into trouble because there was no guidance, right? So regulation is definitely bringing the framework into which that you should be working. So that's a very good thing. But basically I could also argue about regulation, that basically the interpretation sometimes is not there. And this is what's happening with Telegram. I mean, it's as if someone is coming to Tether and telling you, I'm going to sue you guys because someone used Tether to launder money. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, is it the means? Is it the user? I mean, how exactly does it work? And nobody knows. And these are the the blank spots that we need to address. But definitely, you mentioned before that basically you're bringing about effectively freedom to the individual, right? So what are Tether's plans for retail payments? Because effectively for the individual, this is what counts, the retail payments for the individuals. Do you have any specific plans, any specific actions that you're going to be taking in the future in regards to that?
No, I think that mostly it's about cooperating with companies, as I was saying before. There are some interesting projects that we are working on and we are investing in as well. There are some solutions that allow just to send a payment in digital currencies through knowing a mobile number of the other person. So I know your mobile number, I can send you some USDT or a Bitcoin. A wallet is creating on the fly, and you basically receive it. It's very good for, I don't know, like my mom doesn't know what it is about. She just receives money. You see that on Telegram with Ton, you have US dollar now. It's actually USDT. It's really easy to send. More than 1 million users already use it. So it's, of course, that really like can have a very high growth. Then I think one interesting thing, as I was saying before, is like cutting intermediaries. So still now you have a lot of fees. You can eventually pay like already like in Bitcoin, USDT, or whatever in Kazakhstan if you have like a kind of crypto card connected. So it makes like an exchange at the same time, and then you pay in tenge when you are here, right? But what is the conversion rate? What is the FX and so on? So it's really high. So I think that creating other networks can be very important. Like with a company that we invested in, we are trying to create another network so that you basically have something parallel even to Visa and MasterCard in that sense. And then you don't need to pay anymore like these transaction fees and so on. Because if not, you have some sort of monopoly. Everywhere you go, you need to work with either one or the other to do something, which is not, I mean, they did a great job in facilitating transactions all around the world. I'm not complaining about that, no? But I think that we can also have another channel as well, where basically digital currency can flow. In those countries where you cannot directly pay in digital currencies, of course a conversion is needed to the local currency, which is the legal tender, and that's what we work on a lot. Then with different companies in different countries, we do different things. So in Argentina, for example, we did, in Buenos Aires there is Palermo Soho, which is like the main central fancy venue. So we established like payment infrastructure, but we didn't stop at the merchant level. We went to Mercado Central de Buenos Aires, which is basically a big city, if I've ever been there. And so that a person pays, or expat or whatever, a person pays in digital currencies, then the restaurant receives digital currencies, they can go to the Mercado Central and pay for vegetables and food in digital currencies, they can pay their employees in digital currencies. So it's like a kind of vertical integration and circular economy in that. And we saw also many different projects in around Bitcoin, mostly. You have like in Bitcoin Ekasi in South Africa, you have Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador and so on, that are trying to create a circular economy in this space. So we do many initiatives with different parties in this direction.
So I think we only have 2 or 3 minutes left. So yeah, actually 1.26, 25, and counting down. So what do you think is the future of finance? And effectively what we're talking about is decentralized finance, not just for individuals, but perhaps for companies as well. Do you think that the big middlemen are going to be going out of style? So basically there's not going to be a need for Visa, for MasterCard, for the traditional banks. What do you think is the future of finance, of course, with the utilization of stablecoins?
I think that we are going to live in the next 10 years in inflation. The cuts that are being made are not enough to say pace against inflation, and we are Bitcoiners at our heart. So I cannot say that there is nothing better right now than that, but I think it will take 10, 15 years to be understood by everyone, even more, I don't know. So I believe that since we have this inflation and devaluation of currencies and so on, I think that tokenization of real world assets, such as gold, for example, is going to be really important in the near future. And that's why I believe that somehow we are getting back towards the gold standard era. I think we need it somehow. And in general, I think solution that goes in the direction of tokenization will have a big boost in the next years. And I think we are in a good place here with AFSA and all the securitization part. So I believe that this will be the near-term future. Yeah.
So that was very interesting, because effectively what's happening is that we just did a huge circle and we go back to the basics, right? Yeah. So through technology, we go back to the gold standard, which it's a crazy idea, but it's absolutely basically describes what's happening nowadays. So Marco, thank you very much for our discussion. I had a blast. I wish we had a couple of more hours to go through more things. Thank you very much for being here, talking to us. And of course, thank you to the Astana International Financial Center for hosting this. So thank you very much for attending, and enjoy the rest of the day.